You're listening to
Don't Take This Personally,
a
podcast about the business of creativity.
We are your hosts, wedding photographers, entrepreneurs, and friends, Cami Oliveria
And Gabe Conover. Now let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And don't take it personally, whatever we're about to say.
Yes.
Don't. Do not take this personally.
Well, hello once again.
Hello. Welcome back. Hello. This is so exciting. All right, listeners, we're not fucking around with a review or anything because I had some technical difficulties today, which set us behind, and we're on a time clock. So no fucking around. We're getting right to it.
No tomfoolery.
No tomfoolery. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest, Eden fucking Strader. Okay. I've been following her like
Strader.
I want that clip. I don't know about Gabe, but I can say I've been following her for most of my career. Like I don't remember when I started following her. I've just like always known who she is for, basically as long. Maybe I've been doing it longer than you. I don't know, but whatever it is, I feel like I've been following you the whole time somehow.
Yeah, I haven't known her until today.
He's never heard of her.
Cami told me to reach out to you.
Did you say Strader?
Eden Strader.
Eden Strader. But it's such a dream we did a little podcast swap. Listen to hers. We'll be on there. And this has just been so fun and such a dream to chat with her. She's a wedding photographer turned educator / badass.
You guys.
So hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I just want to I'm going to set that as like my alarm in the morning. And it's just like gaping like, eat it fucking straighter. Like that's what I want to wake up to every day.
Yes. I love that. Fuck yeah. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Will you just give our listeners a little background on your journey and as little detail or as much detail as you see fit?
I literally was about to ask, I was like, how much detail do we want?
What hospital were you born in?
Provo, Utah, 9:18 a.m. in case anyone wants to look up my chart.
Nice.
So my mom is an art teacher. My dad was a graphic designer. So I grew up doing artsy things, like kind of how people do sports. Like we grew up doing art things. And
so cute.
I was like that. Yeah. I'm really grateful for that. And
it is adorable, honestly.
Yeah, it's really cute. Like I loved it. And I feel like it really set me up well.
That's what Gabe's kids are going to be saying someday.
Cute.
Yeah.
They are.
I was actually thinking about that. And yes, I would love that.
That's adorable. I love
that. Okay, go, Eden. We're not talking about
no,
me.
but so we're on a time limit, Gabe. So if you could just
come
say
on.
the questions till the end, I would
3 minutes.
appreciate it. So I was like that kid that carried a camera around everywhere. Like I vividly remember in elementary school, stealing my parents' point and shoot camera and dragging it around. And that carried on through junior high and high school. My mom bought me my first kit camera from Costco my senior year. And I start shooting things. I grew up in Utah. So anyone that doesn't know about Utah, everyone gets married at the age of fetus because they're all Mormon. So they get married super young. So there's no off season. People get married on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's insane.
Whoa.
So I kind of fell into weddings there. One of my friend's moms was a wedding photographer and let me shadow her and stuff, which I'm really grateful for. And so that's kind of how I fell into weddings. And then I also got married very young. And on my podcast, I talk about it on the first episode, but I was the only one working. My ex didn't work and I was putting him through school. And so I had to work a lot, because I was providing for two people. And my ex also, he spent a lot of money. So I had to work extra hard to keep us afloat with that. And so my business really took off. I dropped out of school. And then I fell into destination weddings, and I've been doing those for the last 6 years now, which is wild. I just finished my last wedding last year. But starting a few years into my career, I started doing a bit of education. I feel naturally, it just kind of happens where people are asking you so many questions that I kind of start doing hourly mentoring and things
Yeah.
like that. And then I ended up releasing like 2 courses. I released a harsh light course and then a Pinterest course. And then in
Which I've taken the harsh light course. I have that. I bought it and it made me not scared to oh my God, I fucking tagged you in these photos.
I have it screenshotted.
Oh my God,
have it screenshotted in my phone because I look at it.
My worst nightmare ever. I had to shoot portraits at sunset cliffs at like 2 p.m., not a cloud in the sky, bright. And normally I would have just avoided that. But after taking that class, I was like, stop. I know what to do. Even if they don't look right in camera, I know they'll edit fine because I'm following these principles. And I fucking crushed it. And they're some of my favorite portraits I've ever taken. So I'm a little weepy. Everyone listening, she's a great educator and her courses are very good. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Okay. I'm like so excited and happy now. But yeah, so I did that. And then in October of 2019, my life blew up. And I got a divorce. And I had kind of known that it was coming, but in my head, it was like a little bit more out, like than what happened. But that same month that I kicked my husband out of the house, I launched my artificial light course. And that is still to this day, the most I've ever made in a single month. Like it is still my highest profit ever.
Wow.
Yeah. Which was really, really cool. And like such a, like not to sound weird, but like a very spiritual experience, like looking back on, because that is like how I got my life back after my divorce.
Dude, the timing,
like, yeah, like the timing
if the universe wasn't telling you more that you were on the right path. It's that.
Yeah. And like, I have to pay myself a certain amount every month and then I can give myself quarterly bonuses. And so I didn't even get to take the money that I earned from that until after our divorce went through. So it was like how I got my life back and like my money back because my whole savings account got cleared out during my divorce.
Is that a personal decision that you pay yourself every month and then take out quarterly bonuses?
It's like tax wise. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm like under an S corp. So I have to pay myself like an employee and then I can give myself quarterly bonuses. So yeah, it like was all very cosmic the way that it happened. And then obviously pandemic hit, which we don't have to talk about, but that's kind of when I made the transition into doing completely education because all my weddings were done. And between that and my divorce, I kind of was like, I don't know if my heart is like in weddings anymore, which as you guys know, if your heart's not in it, it's done. Like you can't shoot weddings unless you're 100% into them. Like it's not fair to you or your clients. So I was like, I'm going to wrap up the weddings I have on the calendar. And yeah, 2022 is my first year just solely as an educator. I just moved to New York. So it's like a big year. It feels like very aligned and exciting. So that's the rundown. Long story long.
So my immediate question for you, because of course, I feel like this is the dream in a lot of ways to be like a full-time educator. And for a lot of photographers, it's like obvious that that's the next step, or not obvious, but maybe understood or assumed. I don't know.
Yeah.
And when you say you're a full-time educator, I'm genuinely curious, where is your money coming from? Like, is it from your online courses? Is it one-on-one mentoring? Like how, cause I've run the numbers myself and I'm like, oh my God, to make anywhere near what I make shooting weddings, like the amount of coaching I'd have to do, like, how is this even possible? So please lift the curtain up on that. Like, where is your income coming from when you're an educator?
I'm like, full transparency, having this be like my first year doing it full-time and nothing else has been like terrifying. Like, I'll be like very upfront about that like, even just the comfort of having like last year, I had a couple weddings on the books, like to look at your calendar and know there's at least a certain amount of income coming. Like being self-employed, you kind of agree to the fact that you don't have a steady income, but like as a wedding photographer, you know what the next year is going to look like. Whereas I don't. And so it's definitely like it's been like very eye-opening to be like, oh God, like if I don't fucking put the pedal to the floor, like we're fucked. Like, but honestly, I've kind of loved that. Like that's been really cool because I got really, really comfy over the last couple years where like in 2020 and 2021, like this was such a blessing that I was able to do this, but like I didn't really work much. Like I really didn't. Like I worked a couple hours a week, maybe. And I really just focused on like personal growth and like healing from my divorce and a bunch of personal things. And like I got really comfy where it was like I was still maintaining my income by doing very, very little. Which was nice.
That's
and like
baller.
restful. Yeah, it was super cool. And like, I'm really grateful for it. And like, that definitely came at a cost. Like I worked myself into the ground for the first 4 years of my career. So like that led to that. But I think like now it is actually really cool to kind of be a little scared and uncomfortable again. And like moving to New York, like rent here is fucking insanity. And like, even on top of that, I like pushed myself to get an apartment that's like double what I paid in LA because I was like, I know I will work super hard if this is out of my budget.
Love that, dude.
Yeah.
Eden, that's exactly what I did when I moved out. And like, I am living in like my dream city loft apartment. That's the most I've ever paid for anything. But I'm like, I'm going to work hard to fund this lifestyle.
Yeah. And like, it's definitely really scary because like, I don't come from money. Like I don't have anything to like lean back on other than my own savings account and work ethic. Like my parents can't like, and won't pay for me, which I like knowing that like, it's all in my hands. Cause I think it keeps me on edge. So yeah, it's been really cool. And like, it's fun to know, like, I don't know. It's just very like pushing, but anyway, to actually answer your fucking question, I've over the last like 2 years built up like a series of passive online courses. And so those kind of keep themselves running, which is nice. So I have a couple of evergreen courses like the Pinterest course or the artificial light ones, which are like our best sellers that just kind of sell themselves, which is nice. And so we kind of have it as a system where there's at least every day like a little bit of passive income coming in.
People are buying them every day.
There's usually, I'm like, there's gaps, right? Like, but usually at least every other day, something is selling like from the shop, which is really, really nice.
How? Is it ads?
It's years. No. So we actually we have run ads and they don't convert. Like it's all like organic for the most part, which has been really, really nice. And like, something that was really important to me was like, I won't teach on things I'm not passionate about because that's not my place to. And so like the things that I do teach on, like, I don't really have a course where I'm like, it's okay. Like I'm very passionate about the fact that like my courses are quality and they teach you what you need to know. And so I think things have gone really well with like our word of mouth with our courses. Like the only time we've ever been asked for refunds is like a hand, like I can count on one hand. And it was mostly people that like didn't actually read the product description. And they were like, I already knew this. And I'm like, and they're like, or like an artificial light one. Someone emailed me once and they're like, I went and got like my BFA in this. And like, I already knew this. And I was like, well, no shit. Why'd you buy it in the first place?
Yeah.
Like,
That
what are you
person
talking
has no
about?
business buying that.
Yeah. I was like, you shouldn't have bought it in the first place. Like, so we have like those going and then we do like one-on-one coaching. And so that's going to be kind of like the series of things this year is right now we have the year planned out by like launches every month. So like, for example, this first month, we opened up our one-on-one coaching again. And then this next month, we're reopening one of our courses because I'll have courses that are open and closing their doors. So there's only a couple that are evergreen and then some we open and close them. So like, it's nice. Cause like even today someone DM'd me and was like, hey, when is Calling All Brands opening again? And I'm like, oh, it's opening next week. And so we can kind of like get people going with that and like get our pre-launch systems going so that we can like really get people excited about doors reopening or new products. So the game plan right now is like to just continually keep the passive income going as well as opening and closing the doors on coaching. And then like we're offering like a few different options for like coaching on one-on-one experiences. But it's a lot of that. Then, yeah. So I'm like, it's going to be interesting. Like it's literally been like 5 years since my job forced me to like get out of a like, routine. Like I knew how to be a wedding photographer and run that business and like get it done. And so it's been really cool to kind of step into like a new zone of like, okay, like we've got to completely reshape the way that we run this business because it's a different business now. It's no longer the photography.
Whoa.
Yeah.
God, that's so sick.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Whoa. And how do you feel like your podcast has helped with this?
I think my favorite thing about the podcast is like, honestly, I feel like every time people are like, oh, are you earning money off of it? I'm like, are you going to get sponsors? I'm like, no, like, I don't really want sponsors on it. Like, cause unless it was like, I mean, I would if it was a brand I felt like genuinely really passionate about. But like,
Yeah.
for me, the podcast, especially as like an educator, it's really imperative to me that like people trust me and like know who I am as a person, know my style of teaching, know the way I go about things. And so to me, the podcast is just like a way of bonding with my audience and my community. Like I really just want it to be a space where they feel like they get value from me, whether they exchange a dollar or not. Like it's really important to me that I have that energetic exchange outside of money. And honestly, it just brings me a lot of joy. Like I'm sure you guys can relate, like even having guests on, it's so fucking cool to like meet these people that I would never meet and have these conversations and hear their story. And so the podcast for me, like, I mean, it does monetize things in a way, right? Like we announce launches on there and we like, we sometimes will like give them first access to things if there's closed seats, like limited seats. So we do technically make, I think you technically honestly make money off anything you do in your business at the end of the day. But right now we're not like monetizing it. I just really love it for like creating a bond basically with the people in my community.
Love that.
Totally.
I have a question about your process in creating courses. So I feel like it takes a very special type of person to be really good at teaching, especially from a course perspective. Like I feel confident teaching anyone like one-on-one or even over the podcast because it's so personal to me and like I'm really good at talking. So that's fine. Do you feel like, because I think I've done your Pinterest course and I had my assistant do your Pinterest course and we have done multiple Pinterest courses and yours was by far the most well done.
Thank you.
So I would love to know, like, do you feel like that type of teaching, like this style of teaching comes very naturally to you, or did you learn it through trial and error? Did you like, do any sort of schooling for it?
I did no schooling for it. I'm a college dropout through and through.
Get it.
I think like, so I definitely over the years have kind of like come to realize what styles work best for me and when. And I think like something that's also really gone into that is just like being in tune with my energy because it shifts, right? Like there are times where I really like one-on-one coaching and there are times where it's really, really draining to me.
Awesome.
Or like there are times where I'm like, okay, let's do a PDF for this because I think that's going to be the most like digestible for the viewer. But what was your original question? What the fuck am I saying?
It was more along the lines of like, how did you learn how to communicate effectively? What you just said was really cool about how you like, because you do things differently for every course. So anyway.
Yeah. So I will say like the first 3 courses I did, I kind of like did a few different things. So like the first one we did was the harsh light workshop. And that was like recordings of me, like screen recording, talking through it. And then like also getting filmed on shoots. And then the Pinterest course was next. That was a PDF. And then the artificial light one was next. And that was a similar layout to the harsh light workshop. And so I feel like I could kind of test the waters on like what people responded to really well, what people liked, as well as I did host in-person workshops as well. So I feel like I could get a feel as to like how people liked learning. And so it was kind of trial and error, but like at the end of the day, like most things, I think what's important to remember is that like, there's not really any rules when it comes to our businesses. And I think what matters with that is that we set our audiences up well on like what to expect. And so for me, like, again, I mean, I told you guys earlier, like I record my podcast in my bed. Like I'll show up on my stories all the time with like no makeup on and I'm really chill. And like the people that get every single course professionally like lit and recorded and things like that, that's really cool. But it's just like not my vibe. Like I'm not the fanciest person, but like you would know that from interacting with any of my free platforms. So then that way, once you do go into my paid platforms, it's not shocking to you when I'm in my room recording something. Like that's not jarring. Like to me, the priority in my sphere is the content, not the presentation. Not to say like I really try to go out of my way to like make the PDFs really cute because that's I'm like I love cute, colorful things. Like it's not like I like don't care about it, but to me like the priority is the content I'm delivering. And I've also found that like I I can educate best when I'm comfortable, and I don't do well getting recorded by a professional with a mic. Like I can do the podcast really well, but like if you're standing here being like, okay, read off this script, I'm a fucking nightmare. Like I hate it. And so I actually don't know if I'll do a course like that ever again. That I think the artificial light will kind of be the last one of that. Because I just don't teach as well in that format, but I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's more like trial and error to see like what fits best with your personality and your energy, as well as like what your audience prefers to intake.
Awesome. That was a great answer.
That's so interesting, because I feel like there would be like the thought that it would have to be like the best ever. And like, I've tried to record courses, one that has been in the works for years, and maybe it'll ever come out. I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't at this point. But I felt the need to make it like over the top amazing from a production standpoint. And as I work on it, I don't love it. Like, I'm like, it's like, I don't connect to it, but I've already done all this work, and like, maybe that's the truth behind why I've never finished it. I don't know. But I think like, yeah, the content matters more than the presentation. And there is this obsession, I think, to make it over the top polished. But at the end of the day, I don't think that matters.
Yeah. And I think like it's good to try things and be like, actually, that didn't work for me. Like I've found that like my preferred way of teaching courses is to like present a presentation where you can see me in the corner. Like that's how we did Calling All Brands, was like slideshows essentially, but you can't see me tiny. Like that's my preferred thing, because it's like you can actually see it written, and you can see me visually, and you can intake the audio. So it's kind of like the best of all the worlds combined.
Like a classroom setting almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
I took a course like that. And it was the best I did learn. If we remember the lighting workshop, if anyone else remembers that one from an educator. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking. There's a course I loved a lot that was presented in that exact way, like PowerPoint with her talking in the corner, and I absorbed information so well that way.
Yeah.
Eden, are you one that are you much of like a strategy type business owner, or does that question make sense?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like organization and business strategy, is that something that you do a lot of, or no?
So I feel like when I was a wedding photographer, not as much. Like, I feel like I kind of like, I had like a semblance of like systems and processes, but like, I wasn't that strategic. I think like, I just kind of knew that what I was doing was working. So I kept doing it. Like I didn't really like give much thought to it. And then over the last 2 years, like I said, I've kind of chilled and like just focused on my personal life. And that's been one of the big things we've been working on in like the last 6 months, me and my assistant, Jamie, is that we have gotten like extremely organized and strategy based. And like, It is actually, I was telling my friend, I was with him at coffee this morning, and I was like, I am a slut for planning lately.
Yes.
Like I fucking love it. Like I have like 10 Trello boards going. I have sticky notes all over. Like I've really fallen in love with the strategy of it, because it's been really, really cool to like lay out my goals for the year and then like reverse them almost, or like work backwards on like how to hit them, and then strategize based on that in order to be like, okay, like say we want to make like this amount of money this year. That means we would need to sell this many of this, this many of this, this many of this. Like, okay, now how do we do each of those? And like, how do we now assign those themes to months? And how do we now break those down into our marketing platforms, and to like really work backwards, as well as get ahead of things. Like as a wedding photographer, I know we were talking about on your guys' episode, Gabe, but like not being able to have weekends and stuff like that is such shit, like for years of your life. And one of the big things I've learned over the last 2 years, where I did really focus on my personal life. I haven't had a personal life since I was in high school. Like I didn't have one while I was married. And so to like get that again has been so beautiful and fulfilling, and like not something I'm ever willing to let go of again. Like I'm like, I will never go back to not having a personal life for the sake of my business. And so like one of the things we're working on right now is getting everything planned out and like scheduled and automated enough that I can essentially like not completely take the summers off, but like basically like only work a couple hours a week, ideally during the summer. So I can like see my friends and family and like go on trips. Cause like, why the fuck is my savings account just sitting there for no reason? Like I want to actually use it. And, so yeah, we've been diving like a lot more into the strategy, and like that's kind of what we've also been teaching in like the coaching programs now. So like, even for example, tomorrow I have like a VIP day with the client where it's like 4 hours of us just unpacking like an entire launch strategy for her. And it's like one of my favorite things to work on now.
Cool. Has any of it been overwhelming for you at all, the strategy, or have, like you've said, you've been thriving off of it? I feel like a lot of people, strategy is a very like intimidating thing, especially creative people who are like, we just want to create art. We just want to have fun, right? Like, who cares about goals? Like, the goal is just to love my job. So has any of it been stressful for you, or do you feel like you are thriving more so?
I think it can be stressful, but I've really tried to shift my perspective on my job to this idea that, like, have you guys heard of The Inner Work? Do you know what that is, this book?
Oh,
we just
no.
did book club. We just did book club for it on my podcast, actually. Cool. And it was like a really phenomenal book about creating happiness and like changing our perspective based on like our own inner dialogue and like our inner control, rather than like basing it based off our circumstances. And it's been like this really powerful read, because it also had this part where it was talking about how like things that are mundane or things that stress us out or things that like that feel like work, like shifting the perspective of like, what a cool opportunity to like push myself and demonstrate my talents. And so I think with strategy, like it can feel really hard as creatives, especially like when I first got started, I was like, I'm a photographer. Like, why the fuck would I know strategy on marketing? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're just like, I know how to work a camera. And it can be really hard, but I've kind of viewed it as like this cool opportunity of like, oh my gosh, I get to like push myself into something really new. And yeah, that's stressful, but like in a cool way. Like, this is cool that I get the opportunity to push myself and demonstrate talents. And I will say the thing with strategy too is like, it's a lot of work in the beginning, and then it sets you up to have an easier life after. So like, for example, like this VIP day that we're doing in coaching tomorrow, like she's launching like an entire workshop series. And so tomorrow will be like really fucking intense. Like, it's going to be a lot of us mapping out like essentially her entire year and like several different launches and marketing strategy and each of the marketing tools. Like, it's going to be really intense and potentially stressful, right? Because it's a lot of information. But at the end of it, she's going to have something to look back on and know what every single next step is, know what she needs to do daily, weekly, monthly. And so it's cool because it can be stressful and a lot of work in the beginning, but it sets you up to kind of have like a literal system as to how things operate in your day, week, and month, so that you don't have to like every day wake up, right, and be like, what are we doing today other than editing? Like you have it right there in front of you. And so it's nice because we can look at our calendar and we can look at our systems and be like, okay, like today we need to do this because we just worked on this, or like it's the last week of the month. So like right now we are completely batching everything for the next month, social media content wise. And so it's nice because like we know that system, like it's the last week of the month. And so we know like we have to do the Instagram feed, we have to do the graphics, we have to do the podcast, we have to do the email list, but then they're done for the whole month and we don't have to stress about it for a month, which is really nice.
Amazing. Do you have tips for anyone? I'm one who loves flexible organization is the best way that I can put it. And so I would love to know if you have tips for people who struggle with keeping up with this routine, which like, obviously benefits you in the future. And I think that that's something that a lot of people want, but like, they just don't know how to like get themselves to actually do it. Or like, I guess tips and tricks for people who want to stay organized and focused on strategy and stuff like that.
So I'm like, I don't know if you guys ever get like,
you seem really good at
podcast, but I'm not always. And I think that's like, what's important is like, I think it's really important in our businesses to like be attuned to our energy and like where we're at, because like, I'm not always like this. Like, it's not like every day I wake up and I'm like, God, I love strategy. Like, wow. Like, no, like, there are days where I'm like, fuck this. Like, I just want to lay in bed and watch Euphoria and just like not think about any of this. I hate it. Like, and I think like what's really important as business owners is that we just like give ourselves grace that like, sometimes we're just human beings. Like even last week, like we really wanted to push, like we didn't fill all of our coaching spots. And like last week, I really wanted to like push that hard and do all these trainings, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But I got the booster and it knocked me out for days. And like, it's really stressful to like be in bed and be like, fuck, like my entire month's income depends on me doing this, this, and this today. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not going to show up in a good way right now. Like I'm exhausted. It feels like I have COVID. Like I'm not even going to perform or like create anything that good because I don't feel good. And like, obviously that's a more drastic example, but like if you're more chill or you like things a little bit looser, like to just really be attuned to your energy and be like, okay, then like what would be a good system? Like maybe having like rules in place of like, I want to show up this many times a week, but I'm going to show up whenever I feel like it. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be every day. And just like, really going based off your own personality and like your energy and also giving yourself grace that like some days it just doesn't happen. Like,
Love.
and that's okay. Like even today I fucked up big time. I sent a like duplicate email essentially to our email list that I sent out on Monday. And I was like, that sucks that I just did that. Like, and sent out basically like the same thing. But I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm a human being and like, it just is what it is. So like, if it's not going to happen today, that's okay. Like, that's fine. And the world's not going to crumble for it. Like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And people like notice and care about those things less than we think they do. You know?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
No one's
like
judging us as harshly as we're judging ourselves.
Oh no. I like basically took a month off Instagram. I like barely showed up on my stories and my assistant handled the posts. But when I came back, I did a poll and I was like, how many of you noticed I was even gone? And it was like 90% were like, no. And I'm like, that's not offensive. It's because you literally intake like 10,000 pieces of content a day. Like,
yeah, we always feel the need to like explain. Like we always need to be like, oh, I've been so quiet on here because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And it's like people like no don't notice.
Yeah, they're not going to notice. And in the best way, like it wasn't even offensive. I literally reposted it after and was like, take this as your proof that like, if you don't post on Instagram this week, you're going to be fine. Like no one's even going to notice.
No one
literally fine. Yeah.
Love that. I had another question and now I'm blanking. But I do love what you had to say about allowing yourself to be human. I don't know why you said it was woo-woo. It's not woo-woo.
I know. I think I was about to start talking about energy. I think I was going to talk more about like energy, but
we love energy around here.
We love energy around here. Yeah, that's for sure. But like we talk all the time about, and I'm really passionate about having structure, but structure is impossible because we are human. Like perfect structure is impossible because we're human beings. And so it's so good to like be able to see what your triggers are, see what the things are that like yourself. Like today, for example, like was just a rough day from the start this morning. So I was like, you know what, honestly, I am not going to have any expectations on myself today, except to record our podcast because that's a commitment and that's it. And then I'm going to be done and I'm going to work out after this. And that's it. I'm not working anymore. But a lot of people, I think, especially business-minded people like us, just do not allow themselves to take a break. Like I remember even when I was at Starbucks, like when I was sick, I didn't even want to call out because I felt like I was like messing everything up for everyone. So I guess my question for you now is, was that something that you've always been pretty good at, or did it take a lot of like, I guess, having a business in order to get to the place where you allowed yourself to be human?
Oh my gosh, no. I'm like, it's funny because I'm like, this is going to be a longer one. I'm like, hoping I can piece together all these thoughts, but it's been really interesting because when I was married, I was just like a shell of a human being. And I have several friends now that I met through the industry, and like they met me at a time of my life where like you literally wouldn't even like physically or emotionally recognize me. Like I look and was so different. And at that period of my life, because I felt like so out of control in so many aspects, my business was like the one thing I could control. And so I was very type A. I was like almost like militant with myself with my business. I literally like worked and slept. Like that's all I did. And that's all I did for literally like 4 years.
Something Gabe and I can both relate to big time.
Like I just drove myself into the ground. And so after my divorce went through in January of 2020. And so it was right before the pandemic. So it was like such an interesting dynamic of like, I moved to LA alone impulsively, just to like start over, get locked in my apartment immediately alone, and processing the end of like a 6-year relationship, 4-year marriage. Like it was so much. And like, I know it's a huge privilege to say that the pandemic came at a good time for me, because I know it has been so heartbreaking and hard for so many people. So I don't want to like minimize that. But for me, it literally forced me to like give myself a break and to like let myself be a human being. And that was really, really hard. Like my business had been my entire identity in my entire life. And so to also kind of like have it ripped from me, because at that point I was doing primarily weddings, like, and be like, oh my gosh, like one, I need to heal from all of this that's happened to me personally. But two, like, what do I do now that work isn't a thing? Like, who am I as like a human being? And so I had to like develop hobbies and read books and like let myself like find life again outside of my business. And that was such a beautiful journey that, like, again, like I said, like I'll never go back to that. Like, and that's why that's so important to me to like help people realize that like your business shouldn't be your life. It should be a tool for building a better one. Like it should be a stepping stone and a tool for you to build your best life, not be your entire life. Like I don't ever want to teach someone how to have an amazing business as like the end game. Like I want to help you have a better business so you can have a better life. And I think as business owners, because we're so entangled in it, it's so easy to let it just take over everything. But at the end of the day, like a successful business doesn't even matter if you never step back and actually enjoy what it's provided to you. So
Ooh.
I love that so
Love
much.
that
I
line.
got chills when you were talking because I went through the exact same thing in 2020. Like my identity was completely like rooted, like my sense of worth and my complete identity was rooted in my own perception of my busyness and my success. And like when that was taken away, I did not even know what I had. And so, and it's so sad that that's where I was, that I was like, who am I and what do I even have without this? But I'm so grateful for it for so many reasons, because I don't believe I'd ever stop shooting less weddings going forward if I didn't have that, because I was defined by it, even though I like didn't want it and was burnt out and all the things. Like I would have never stopped shooting that many. I was just on like an unsustainable track because my whole identity was wrapped up in like, I'm so successful. Look at all these people who say yes to me every year. You know, that was like, that fucking defined me. You take that away and I had to sit with myself for the first time and be like, who am I and what do I even want now? Like outside of that. And that sucks and it's scary.
I literally feel like it was like, what is it? Is it Will Ferrell where he's like, what do I do with my hands? Like that was me in 2020 where I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself now? Like I literally have no personality outside being a business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, plus you were going through just the trauma of having a relationship end too. So I'm like all of that at once, dear Lord, like
there's a lot. And then I lived
exhausting.
alone. Yeah. I lived alone. So I remember there was 1 month where I did not see another human being for a month.
Oh,
That was a lot.
holy shit.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's wild.
Whoa.
So what prompted your move from LA to New York?
Yeah. So New York has actually always been the dream. I had literally no ties to LA. I'd only been there once for work. I moved there strictly on an impulse and feeling. Like I just felt like I was supposed to be there. And in hindsight, like I made some of my best like lifelong friends there, which I feel like is why I was supposed to be there. And I feel really grateful for that. I also think like being quarantined, New York really was a shit show during the pandemic. And I think that would have been too much for me to like be quarantined in a tiny apartment here. Like they literally couldn't leave their apartments.
Right.
Whereas like in LA, I could like go on a drive. Yeah. Yeah. So, and LA was nice because even moving there, I just felt like it was a chapter. Like even when I first moved there, I was like, I know this is short term and I don't know why, but like, I just know I'm supposed to be here at least for a little bit of time. And so I was there for 1.5 years. And then this past summer, I knew my lease was ending soon and I was trying to kind of decide like what I wanted to do. I was dating someone. And I started talking to my best friend, Abby. I was like, I think I need to go to, like, I kept talking about like finding a new lease in LA. And it just felt really, this is again, where I think like knowing your body's signals energetically is really like helpful, because I'd like talk about staying in LA and it just felt really stagnant. Like my body just felt really like bleh about it. And I was like, I don't really know like where I'm supposed to go though. So like, what am I supposed to do? And I started like tossing out the idea of like, well, what if I do go to New York? My ex had lived here before, so he was thinking about like moving here. So I was like, that wouldn't be the end of that relationship. Anyway, that relationship obviously ended anyway. But like, And I just could feel it in my body. Like I remember so vividly, Abby and I were on a road trip and I was like, no, dude, like I could move out this time. I could go look for apartments here. Like, oh my gosh. And I could just like feel the energy in my body, like lighten up. And even Abby was like, dude, I have not seen you like this when talking about housing, like ever. And so I kind of just knew it was time. And so I was playing with the idea of I had a wedding here in September and my lease was up in September. So I was like, okay, I'll look for apartments there. And then my relationship ended and I just kind of was like, it's time. Like it's just time. It's done. So much like healing of trauma had also happened in LA. And I just kind of was like, it just felt like that chapter was done and that there was like a lot of energy that just needed to be left there. And it was all very aligned. Like my lease ended. I drove all my stuff to my parents in Utah and it was such a shit show because I had so much travel. It was my last couple weddings. And so I came here for my wedding, extended the trip by 3 days and I looked at like 2 or 3 apartments and I just literally kept like asking the universe, like, please just like give me the place that is mine. And I did like a bunch of manifestations around it. I had like a list of exactly what I wanted, which if you guys have ever looked at housing in LA, in New York, the list that I had was so unrealistic and douchey. Like anytime I would tell it to people, they were like, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like,
will you tell us
that? Oh yeah. I was like, I want floor to ceiling windows. I want natural light. I want laundry in the building. I want a gym in the building and I want a Trader Joe's and a train station within a 10-minute walk. And they were like, that is so stupid. Like you're an idiot. And I was like, I get that, but I'm sticking to it. And like,
fuck yes.
I just like, there was something too about like, again, like being divorced and like losing everything. There's something really beautiful about rock bottom where you're just kind of like, fuck it. I've already hit rock bottom. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I have to move in with my parents. Like, please. Like, I've already done something so much worse. And so I was like, no, like I trust that the universe is going to give me this. And I literally like refuse to think otherwise. Like in my head, it's already done. And so this was actually the second apartment I toured and I was with my friend Seth Sanker and we walked in and we were just like, obviously this is my house. Like obviously, like it was just so energetically aligned and I love signs. So I'll like ask the universe for signs. And my sign for New York was that I wanted a bunch of 7s. Like I was like, just show me like my lucky number 7s if this is like where I'm supposed to be. And I applied. I hadn't seen 7s yet, but I applied because
here's the woo woo.
Yeah, here's the woo woo.
Here it is.
What was scary about this time is like I was about to start traveling again. And so it was like, if I didn't find an apartment on this trip, I was not going to have an apartment until like, I would essentially have had to move in with my parents at least for a bit and like fly out here and look for them. And so, and this apartment is out of my budget. Like I did that on purpose so that I could like force myself to earn more money. And so I was like, we'll see if I get approved. Like, cause again, no one's going to co-sign with me. Like it's just me. And so I applied and the last day in New York, I was getting on the subway with my parents and we like looked up and the train was like 777777777, like all of these 7s.
Whoa, spooky.
And and I remember being like, okay, like, and then we were literally on the Uber to the airport that afternoon. And I remember just being like, it was when like the doubt started to creep in because before I was so like, that is my apartment. I'm so solid. I don't have a doubt in my mind. But like, as we're driving to the airport, I'm like, fuck, like if I don't get that apartment, like, what do I do? Like, I'm going to have to like fly back here in a month. And anyway, I got the call on the way to the apartment, like in the Uber with my parents that I'd gotten approved for the apartment. It was mine.
Hell yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it's just really cosmic. And like, I like literally have chills thinking about it. Like, there's actually like a spot. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dumbo and like Brooklyn and stuff, but, I live really close to Dumbo and Dumbo. There's a spot by the water, which is like where I've made all my big life decisions. Like it's literally where I turned to like my best friend and was like, I think I can get a divorce. Like, I think I would survive this. And like, it's where I decided to move here. Like so many like big moments have happened there. And so when I first moved here, I could like walk my dog down to it every night and just like have a little weep. So yeah, that's how I got to New York. That was the longest fucking story.
No, I love that.
It's great. And we're so into like mindset and manifestation and like the way that type of energy, like when you allow yourself to manifest, the way that it like makes your body and makes your like brain rewire itself to just make shit happen. It is so awesome.
Yeah.
And I love hearing people like actually take advantage of that because people are afraid of everything like nowadays. And like people love sustainability and just like coasting through life on what's easy,
Mhm.
and then they never end up doing the things that they love. And it's so cool
Mhm.
to like just
Yeah.
hear stories from people that are like, dude, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah. I feel like, oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say the way I think of this too, when things are just like aligned energetically, is I think of it as it feels like you're on the path of least resistance,
Mhm.
and not in a way where things aren't hard, and that
Mhm.
you're just like choosing the easy way. But when things are right, I just feel like there isn't a lot of resistance to them, like from the universe. And this is like
Mhm.
the most woo-woo thing I ever say, but I'm just
Mhm.
like, you can tell, like when I started wedding photography, it's not that it was easy, but it was also easy. Like all the doors were just opening. And like I didn't have to put that much mental effort into making it happen, because it was just like there just wasn't a lot of resistance to me going down that path. And then when I like left my marriage, and your situation sounds much different than mine. Mine is quite amicable and boring. And we just like mutually decided we didn't want to be married anymore, and made that decision together. But there was not a lot of resistance to any piece of it. Like we left peacefully. I found my dream apartment. This was the first place I ever saw.
Love.
Never in a million years could believe I could get approved for this on my own. Like all these things just happened, even though it was hard and traumatic, but also kind of easy. Like it just felt like, man, these doors are just opening like in succession, and I just have to walk through them.
Yeah. Well, and I think like what's important too is like it should be easy on that actual route, but that doesn't mean it's easy in general. Like I remember when I applied for this apartment, it was so wild. Like I literally sent out the application. I walked down the street, immediately ran into my ex's best friend, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm moving here." Like, and then within 2 hours, my ex-husband's friend texted me, which I'm like not in contact with any of them. And they were like, "Hey, what are you up to? Like, how are you?" And I like called my friend and I was like, I feel like the universe, like none of those things were going to affect me moving there. But I almost feel like the universe were like, here's some little tests just to make sure that like you're serious about making your life exactly what you want it to be. So like it still was like weird and like hard stuff happens, right?
Yeah,
but, like,
of course.
The actual thing lining up, like things should feel like doors are opening for you, because that's how moving here felt.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Eden, it has been a blast having you on our pod.
I feel like this could be 4 parts. I have so many more things to ask, but I know we have to end.
We'll do a part 2. We've got like 5-10 more minutes if you have more questions.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, I can do like 10 more minutes. Yeah.
Cami.
No, there isn't even time. I feel like I'd be opening
we'll just
a new
do another
topic.
one.
Do you know what I mean?
Perfect.
Like the questions I have to follow up that are just like a new can of worms that would unlock another path.
We'll set up date number 2.
Please.
Yeah,
I would love that. I love these little like, this is how I want to end every workday, is just like shooting the shit with you guys.
Hell yeah. Well, really quick. But the last thing I want to ask then is, will you tell our listeners like kind of what's next for you and what you're most excited about right now?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So this year, obviously, like everything is education, which has been like really, really exciting. And one of the things that I'm really trying to do this year is like, one, we're really pushing the podcast. So there's like new education things coming out, and we're also like launching merch for the podcast. That's really exciting.
Fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. But one of the things I'm really pushing myself to is like to start like doing things that are businessy, that are just fun again, that like aren't related to my education business. So like I've been doing a lot of like TikToking, which is a shit show. And I always tell people, I'm like, if you're going to follow me on there, I'm a human being, not a professional. And I say some stuff.
TikTok.
That is maybe not the most professional. So just like, that's my grain of salt with it.
Perfect.
But then also like my friend and I are starting like a dating podcast, because dating in New York is just as chaotic as they say it is. And like, yeah. So just like trying to do stuff like that again. So I'm really excited. Like the education things that we have lined up this year, I'm just like ecstatic for. I feel like I'm moving forward in my life in a way where like, I just am not doing anything anymore that doesn't call to me. Like I refuse to do anything that I don't feel energetically aligned with. And I'm just trust that the universe will make that work. Like, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, which I'm excited about.
That's so rad. And where can people find you?
So you guys can find me at Eden Strader on like everything. I'm like Eden Strader on everything. And then my podcast is That's My Personal Business on Instagram.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Look at us podcast twins.
Look at us little podcast twins.
Is Strader your maiden name, or was that your married name?
It is my married name. Gabe and I were actually just talking about that. it has always felt like my name. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't remind me of my ex at all. Like
Yeah.
otherwise I would change it.
Yeah.
But it just feels like mine, and it's like how I
Cool.
built my business. And like I also think it's a cool name. Like I love my
Yeah.
name. So, like,
Yeah, I was wondering that because Oliveria is not my maiden name. That's like my married name.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping it for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Probably always as my business brand. And it was so cool. I remember like when I was separating, you know, when we were separating, I was like, do you care if I keep the name? And he's just like, you do it proud, like whatever.
Cute. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so that is my married name too. And I thought Strader was yours as well, because
Yeah, it's
the
my
whole
married
time
name.
I've been following you, that has been your name. So
Yeah.
cool. I love that. Just like, whatever, keep it. It's like,
Yeah, it's mine. It just feels like my name. Like I'm like, I never think twice about it until people ask, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it's not like my
wait, what was your
name.
maiden name?
Hermanson.
Oh, Strader's cool.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, Eden Strader hits way more than Eden Hermanson.
That
not
hits
the vibe.
different.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
We had a
This
blast.
has been so fun and
you guys.
such a dream come true to what's so funny is I feel like I knew you before this, but we talked that we didn't. But
I just go straight into it. I'm like, Gabe, how are the kids? I've never fucking met you in my life. I don't even know your kids' names, but I know you have
The
them.
way you said that. How are the kids?
How are the kids?
How are the kids? We definitely have to do this again. There's so much that Gabe and I talked about wanting to talk to you about that we didn't even get to. So anyways,
literally anytime.
Yay. Love it. When we will.
More crossovers, please.
I know. More menage pods, please.
More menage pods.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're so excited for you and all your adventures and can't wait to see everything you do.
Yes. All right. We will see you all next week, my friends. Thank you for tuning in once again.
Okay. Goodbye.
On the Menage Pod. Bye.